Cool. So we've got 7 people on. That's exciting. If you want to let me know where you are, that'd be awesome, and then we'll try and cater the chat to where people are. Looks like we got some people from all over, from the States and from Canada, so that's awesome. Um, but yeah, feel free to write down your closest airport or your destination that you want to go in the comments, and then other people can see where you want to go, and then maybe we'll go from there. But to everybody who's tuning in, welcome. It's nice to meet you. My name is Matt. I started the Travel University just as a way to try and help share what I knew about travel and about how to save money and how to get the most out of everything that you have. So I don't want to blab too much. I'll try and get straight into the juicy stuff. One of the best ways to save money is using points and miles. So as a very quick rundown, airlines created loyalty programs to try and get people to spend more. So you will have heard of Air Canada Aeroplan, you have American Airlines Advantage, United Airlines Miles. Some people are very well versed in this, some people are kind of very fresh. And there's lots of nuance with each of the programs that you need to know. But in general, what I'd like to do today is just slowly walk through how I would go about booking something, and hopefully you can pick up some pieces about that, because no matter what program you're in, or no matter what program you have miles in, the process is basically the same, and it's kind of a 4 or 5 step process where you just got to go piece by piece and you find what you want. And the biggest reason why you can't just go on the airline website and search is there's often some really small pieces of the technology that just don't work as you would think that they would work. So if you're trying to fly from A to B and there's not direct flights, then often you have to go through a connecting city, and sometimes the computer just doesn't know how to make that work. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it just doesn't. And for that kind of inconsistency, it's really frustrating sometimes. And so today I'll talk about how to get around that, how to search for the cheapest route. There's often, with award flights, sometimes depending on the program, fuel surcharges come in, and that can affect how much the ticket costs in the end. If some of this terminology isn't making sense, feel free to write a comment and someone might be able to pipe in and give you a hand there. So I'll just jump back on and see where people are from. Don't see much going on in the way of comments, so that's okay. A couple of people interested in visiting Vietnam. We'll stop over in San Jose, San Francisco, California. Awesome. Welcome, Joyce. Sharon, Dallas. Nice to see you. Sunny from Seattle. Heather's from Victoria here, same as me. Tim and Kathy are here. That's great, from Victoria. Panama Jim. Like an old Godzilla movie. Oh, these comment jokes are going to be too hard to keep up with, but please keep them coming. So I'll get going, because I know everyone can listen to somebody talk, but they'd rather get something out of it. So I'm going to share my screen, and you'll be able to see what I see, and we'll hope that that works as well as it's meant to work. So what we're going to do, that's the current time, it's not quite right. I'm going to go through and have a look at some of the comments that people were saying and the things that they would like on the trips that they would like to go on. So a couple of different people on some of the places that I posted. We had Mary wanted to go from North Carolina to Paris. And when I look at these, I look at regions, depending on what kind of miles you have, but you generally are looking at regions. So Wilmington would, I would think, North America to Paris in Europe. And that will come apparent in a little bit, but we'll just go piece by piece here. If you can't quite see what I'm looking at, maybe try and make it full screen too. Cool, a couple of different people want to go to Patagonia. So obviously, when you're looking at this, when you're planning out a trip, it's like kind of like the best place you would love to go, and that's always a really good place to start because it's really easy to get caught up in thinking of all the possibilities. And so sometimes it's best to just start with a map and take a look and start to whittle away and figure out where you want to go. So obviously there's a million different places in the world. I'm in Victoria right now, so it's zooming in there. Now, what we're going to start with is, we'll start with someone who's here. So Joyce, just because it's the top one, Joyce, who wants to go to Vietnam with a stopover in Japan, by the looks of it, from San Francisco area. So I'll talk you through a little bit about the piece by piece of what I would do. And so in the, if you go to the, on my blog post, I wrote about, I'll go here. Here it is. So on the blog post I wrote about the major steps, and so these are always the same, and it's really quite simple when you have a think about all the pieces that are involved. Always start with the simplest, and then you're going to have to work your way up if you need to. I'll talk about a couple different tools that I use, and then I'll talk about a couple different methods that we're going to use. But the first one is test to search to check. So the miles that Joyce had, did she write them down? No, we're going to, so we're all looking at the same thing. I'll write them here so you can see them. So Joyce is from San Francisco or San Jose. I don't remember if that's what the other name of the other airport is, but I think it is. And she wants to go to Vietnam with a stopover, ideally in Japan. What kind of miles does she have? Joyce, what kind of miles do you have? I can't see. Let's try another one with miles. I saw a really good one down the bottom on the post as well. Okay. It's got ultimate rewards, 130k. Everyone wants to go everywhere. So ultimate rewards is the Chase program. Chase ultimate rewards. I know some of you will be like, oh, I don't have Chase rewards, this isn't going to help me, but it will, don't worry. So it's got 130k Chase points. So there's a couple different elements here, but we'll just keep this text notepad here ready. Now, when you want to go is kind of important, but let's just assume you want to go in, let's see if you've written back to me here, Joyce. I know this is kind of odd. May 2017, there you go. Geez, this is, internet is a wonderful thing, isn't it? So May 2017, and that's pretty much all we need to get started. So if we look back at that list, test, search to check. So the idea is we're going to search using the program immediately, originally, rather than try and figure out all these million different ways. A lot of people talk about searching segment by segment, but it's really important that you try and search the simplest way first. So Chase Ultimate Rewards has a bunch of different conversion partners. So you want to look up which partners they can convert to figure it out. We're going to go to Chase website because it's nice and quick. So now Chase is the bank, just exactly the same as in Canada. You're going to have TD, RBC, American Express. Like the bank is going to be one part, and then in this instance, Chase is similar to American Express, where they have their own points system, and they also let you, if you look here, one-to-one points transfer. So that means you can transfer it to other airlines. American Express lets you transfer to a bunch of different airlines too. But Chase lets you transfer to participating frequent traveler programs. So any of these programs you can convert your air miles to. Now I'm not going to go too much into detail of each individual one. I'll point out a couple of different options just first that we can try, and then you could obviously dive down. Sometimes this takes hours to do, so I'll just show you a couple of very quick examples. So first off, we're going to go to Southeast Asia, hopefully with a stopover in Japan. So United Mileage Plus is one program we can use to get there. Obviously any of these other ones as well, but just off experience, I know that United has a really good program because it's quite cheap and they offer lots of stopover options. British Airways might work if the distance is right, and the reason being that British Airways is distance based, so the exact distance between airport A and airport B equates to like a points value, as opposed to United has region based, and that's kind of complicated, but let's just assume that what I'm doing is trying to weed out which individual program we're going to use. If you don't know, just pick one and we'll go from there. So we're going to choose United, and what we're going to do is go to United's website, which I've got saved. So we'll go to United's website and we'll search for this exact trip, just one little piece at a time. Now, obviously it says, do you want to book an award ticket? You say yes. Round trip. We want to go from San Francisco to Vietnam. I think there's a bunch of different airports there that we can choose, and it's not going to show me. Someone might know, but what I do if I don't know where an airport is, I go to my friendly site called Flight Connections. And this is awesome. This is a really good site for figuring out airports that are nearby where you would like to go. And so we're just going to let this load for a second. Now, you can, with this is quite handy, you can filter by airline. All these dots are different airports all across North America, all across the world. The green ones are the big major hubs, and then there's yellow ones which are kind of like medium hubs, and then the red ones are kind of tiny airports. And they often large carriers do fly there, but not always. But this is a really good site, Flight Connections, and it's on the blog page if you do want to grab that link. So we know that Vietnam's down in the corner of Southeast Asia, and we're going to take a look at what airports we can choose to fly to. So obviously it's a pretty big country. There's variants of culture between the north and the south and whatever city you're going to go to. The comments aren't loading quick enough, Joyce, so I'm going to just pick one for you. But let's say you want to go to Ho Chi Minh City or Hanoi. Let's try Ho Chi Minh. You click on Ho Chi Minh and it shows you all the different airports that you stop at. Now my mind's kind of racing now, thinking, okay, well, I know that there's a flight directly from Ho Chi Minh to Japan, to a bunch of different cities in Japan, which means that there's going to be the same flights back. We can deal with that in a little second because we're just trying to figure out the airport. So all we're taking from this is Ho Chi Minh City. So I'm going back to United and I'm going to type in Ho Chi Minh City here and see if it comes up. Perfect. So it's coming up in United, which means that one of United's partners flies there. And we're just going to search for that on its own for now. So Joyce wanted to go in May 2017. It might be a little far away. Yeah, it's on the very edge of when you're allowed to book, but we'll just say early in the week there. Let's just pick a random date. and see what happens, because United's quite good. They come up with as a calendar. So you just pick a couple of dates. If you know your dates, then you enter them. That's fine. Make sure you choose economy. Choice from the States, so you're going to make sure you choose the States, because that selects the currency. If you're going to do 2 people, you could do 2 people. And then you'll click search. Now, this is really far away. It's in May, and so it's going to show lots of availability. But 9 times out of 10, obviously, this is pretty vanilla. This is like, you're just going to search, and you're probably going to find what you want. Something to keep in mind, if you are booking this far in advance, then some airlines won't release their seats until like a little bit closer, and some airlines don't release them until very close. Like Air New Zealand is a Star Alliance carrier, just like United, and they don't release a lot of their flights until quite close to the date that you're flying. So you probably won't see any Air New Zealand flights here, even if they don't fly to Ho Chi Minh City. But if you were trying to fly to New Zealand, you probably wouldn't see them either. So obviously on the side here, we're seeing all the different flights, some with 1 stop. Duration's 20 hours, it's not too bad, you can see the details. But the biggest thing we're looking for here is Sabre Award. So we're looking for the shortest award. This is exactly the same for Aeroplan. You're looking for the cheapest number. If you're not sure of the number, you can look up what's called an award chart, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But for now, we know that we can get 1 flight out there, and it stops in Japan, which is great. Then it goes, so there's only 1 connection for 2.5 hours in Narita from San Jose, and then it goes to Ho Chi Minh City. So that's awesome. You could choose it. Now, if you wanted to stop over, you have to make a multi-city search. So I probably won't go into multi-city now because it's a whole different beast, but this is what you would start with. If you didn't see Sabre Award here, okay, if you didn't see Sabre Award here, that's when you'd start walking yourself through this process of like, okay, which airlines fly to Ho Chi Minh City? Can I use my United points to get there? And so you go, you want to get to Ho Chi Minh, and you go Narita, and you click it, and it shows all the different airlines that fly there. So ANA, Japan Airlines, and Vietnam Airlines. I know that ANA is Star Alliance, right? And Star Alliance is the same alliance as United, so I can use United miles on that. There's a bunch of different airlines that will partner with ANA, just the same as Air Canada. So if you were flying Air Canada and you wanted to fly to Ho Chi Minh City, and there obviously probably isn't a direct flight to Ho Chi Minh City from any Canadian city, then you're going to have to stop somewhere. And so you try and piece together the itinerary segment by segment. And so we know that we can go to Narita, we can probably go to Haneda from Japan Airlines. It's not part of the United group. How do you know which one is part of the United group? That's a different story. But I will have some links up at the end which tell you that. But this lets you see, like, okay, I know where I can connect to get to Ho Chi Minh City. You can actually just start afresh. So you could just say, all right, I'm in San Francisco and I want to go to Ho Chi Minh. How are the different ways to get there? And this shows all of them broken down step by step. So I find this really handy just to figure out, okay, and it also shows you the duration. So it's like, okay, that's the shortest trip that I'll be able to take. And so that would be nice, because I would like to not have to be stuck in a bunch of different airports. So I realized that the shortest trip is through Taipei. EVA Airlines is part of the Star Alliance, and so you can fly EVA Air with United points, but United also flies to Taipei. So even though that didn't show up on our search, it does say that that would be the shortest, and it's not showing up on this date. Now, that's possibly because the seats aren't available yet or whatever, but just know that what you see on this site is not everything that's possible, right? What you see on this site is kind of the possibilities, but it's not always what's available. So you have to kind of play in between those two worlds of like what is possible and what is available. But the more information that you have, the more powerful you are. So 3 people, I see this. You got 3 people and you're flexible with time. Joyce only just read that. But the point, what I want to try and get across is, what you see here is a good start, and it's great to know. And to be honest, like if you saw a flight for 40,000 miles for one way and $20 taxes, like that's pretty much a sure thing. Now, when you get into the multi-city, what you're going to see is you're going to see the first leg, and then it's going to say okay, and then you're going to see the next leg. As long as each individual leg is on a partner of United Airlines, then it's 100% possible to use United Miles. You just have to find availability. So this shows you, sites like this show you routing options, and they're really handy, because then if this were to show, if let's say you were to search and it would say nothing, then what you could do is be like, okay, I know it stops in Taipei. So I know that there's a flight from San Francisco to Taipei, and then Taipei to Ho Chi Minh. So if I was going to go back, I would search in here, and you could search one way, because you're searching one little segment at a time. And you're going to change this from Ho Chi Minh to Taipei. And you're going to search for that. So we're going to see if this comes up. It's important to remember that, like these websites too, that it's just the front end, it's just a computer, and what the agents have on the back end is still just a computer, but it has a little bit more power. And if they know how to enter the right information, they can find exactly that. So isn't this funny that like when you look, you see, okay, EVA Airways to Taipei, there is a flight, it's 35,000 miles, and only $5.60. Now, why is it different? Well, the reason it's different is because there's these things called award charts, and the award chart dictates that depending on which area you are departing and which area you are arriving, they say, well, that will be this many points. And United decided that this part of Asia, in Taipei, in Taiwan, that is going to be 35,000, and they decided if you go all the way to Southeast Asia, then that's going to be 40,000. And so that's kind of why the points are different, but the general gist of what I'm trying to say is like when you know the connections, you have a bit more flexibility. So you know that there's a flight from San Francisco to Taipei at 1 a.m. getting in at 5:15. And then if you wanted to look at Taipei to Ho Chi Minh, then we could have a look on here and see if there's a flight connecting there. And there is at 9:20. So that's not available though. Darn. So this gives you a bit of a better idea that although it is available in business, it wasn't available in economy, and let's just say we're looking at economy for now. If it was, right, if this was available in economy and for some reason the computer didn't put the two together, then you could call up the airline and say, okay, I see that flight BR391 from Taipei to Ho Chi Minh is available. And then you could, obviously, piece by piece, you want to be writing these down. So you want to write down the flight time. Make sure you are thinking of the right date, and it will have the date at the top here. And if it's different, it will have it noted here as well. And the flight number. And then you can confirm that it's the right airline and everything. And then if it says Sabre here, then it's available on their computer. So you can always go on there and assess. Use that to get the ticket that you want. So if you were to go online and say, hey, I want to go the Taipei connection because I see it's available online, then you could get that online. So that explains a little bit about how we're going from looking originally and then diving down a little bit deeper if the search that we're trying to search for doesn't show anything. But you notice here, like United's really good for showing a calendar. And they also have this little checkbox here called Show Only Non-Stop Flight Availability. So if I check that, it will show all the dates that have non-stop flight availability. But it's saying that because it's Business Sabre available, then it's going to cause me trouble too. but interesting. That sometimes takes a second to load. There you go. So this map is showing what it's meant to, which is only the non-stop flight ability. Blue means business class. So this is saying that on these days in blue, there's only non-stop flights in business. On these green days, there's non-stop and there's non-stop economy and business. So if we look down here, we see that on that Thursday, the 4th, there is availability to go directly. Now, to be fair, you could search for directly from San Francisco to Ho Chi Minh. It would probably show up this more direct flight. But the idea is that knowing piece by piece, you can be sure that you're getting what you think you're getting, because the computer can sometimes get complicated. Anything over one stopover is usually okay. 2 stopovers is usually hard in terms of connection. So the computer doesn't really know what to find, or if you're flying to like a strange, like not a common, like Ho Chi Minh's pretty common airport with lots of, but if you're flying to some strange small city in South America, then you have to consider that the computer might not find the best routes, and you might be better off searching yourself by going to flight connections and figuring out all the different routes and going from A to B to C to wherever it works. Now some people, this is too much work and they don't want to do it, and that's fine. So there are you can pay somebody to do it for you, or you can just stick to places that have easy availability. But that's kind of like a bit of a dig down of going from A to B when you're just searching normally, and then how to piece the pieces together. This little checkbox is really handy. Sometimes you have to press a date to let it refresh, and then it will show you. So that's like a little bit, Joyce. It might not give you everything you want, but hopefully it gives you a little bit more information of how you can piece your trip together. Using United would be one way, because you have chase points and they're quite flexible. Now we'll have a quick chat about award charts. United's award chart. Is just loading. And so this is basically like, it breaks down the cost of everything. And so a lot of people have seen these, a lot of people will not know what these are. But the basic gist is Sabre Standard Travel Award Chart, and Aeroplan has this. Most airlines, most of the good ones to fly, have an award chart for region based. So you see this blue section here. It says if you want to go from mainland USA to mainland USA, then you look at the chart where it corresponds. So in economy, from mainland USA to mainland USA, Alaska or Canada, is 25,000 miles. To Hawaii is this, to Mexico is this, to blah, 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 blah. Now, in terms of stopovers, United, think of a stopover like, if we go back to flight connections, a stopover is technically, by definition, I'll write this down. So stopover on international equals anything less than, hang on. So there's 2 things to remember here. There's connections and there's layovers. And this is very small text, but I'll try and zoom in a bit. Yeah. Those connections and layovers. On a connection, it just means you're flying into the airport and you're flying out. And so you fly in, you don't get out of the airport, and you come straight out. On a domestic, that is anything less than 4 hours. On international, that is anything less than 24 hours. And that means that if you go 23 hours and 59 minutes, it's a connection. And you can have kind of pretty much as many connections as you want anywhere, but you can't stay more than 24 hours. For most other places, a stopover on a domestic, it counts as anything greater than 4 hours, and international, it's anything greater than 24 hours. So anything more than 24 hours is a stopover, and you can have it pretty much as long as you want. So let's say I was going to fly, well, let's say I'm Joyce and her family, and I'm going to fly from San Francisco. I can either stop over in Japan on the way there, or I can go straight to Vietnam and then stop over on the way back. But whatever I'm doing, it doesn't matter whether I do it beforehand or after, or how long I go, because they treat it as though you're just doing one round trip to Vietnam, back via just like a connection. So the award treats it like a connection, and I'll show you this in another tool here. This is a good way to calculate the distance of airports. So if you're going to go SFO to, well, let's just say we went through Taipei. And then you were going to go from SGN to Narita, back to SFO. So this shows a map of exactly what's going on there. We're going to zoom in a little so you can see. So San Francisco, then to Taipei, and then down to Ho Chi Minh is one trip. Although you stop in here, you stop for the less than 24 hours, and so you can stop and go to Ho Chi Minh and do whatever you need to in Ho Chi Minh, and you have a great time. On the way back, you go via Narita, and you could stop for you could stop for 2 hours and just go shopping, or you could stop for 3 weeks. And as long as there's availability on the flight there and the flight back, then it should be the same price. Now, there's kind of intricacies, and there's a really good post by Travel is Free on United Stopovers. I'm going to post it in the link. Sorry, I'm going to post it in the show notes there. But the biggest complication with that is like there's certain areas that you can stop and you can't stop from depending on what the cost is on the award chart. So I will paste this into the blog, and then you guys will get to see that. So what I'm going to do now, I might just have a look at some questions. Can you mix and match legs in economy and business first? From Extra Adventure. So Heather at Extra Adventure. What I would say is it's always cost the highest. Now, well, here, I'll put this here before I forget. My brain is a scatterbrain. So I'll put this United Stopover and Routing Rules, and there's some really good stuff from Travel is Free. But in terms of answering Heather's question, can you combine business and economy? You can, but it costs, like if you were to go to United and you were searching for a business flight to get to Japan, and then to get onward to to China, and then to Ho Chi Minh, and let's say this big long section was in economy, and then the rest, or this big long section was in business, and then this was in economy. The only problem with that would be that you're paying for business the whole way. But what you can do is just book it, and then call up or keep searching for like individual segment availability in business on this leg, and then once it becomes available, you can call them and get them to change it. And it depends on the agent whether they charge you, but more often than not, from what I've heard, that it doesn't cost money. So you can say, hey, like I booked a business class flight and I've seen availability in business open up here because I got stuck on economy. Then you can call up and get that switched. And so hopefully that answers that question. Aeroplan, yes, as far as I've heard from a couple of people who have done it, yes, you can go on Aeroplan, when you book on Aeroplan, you'll see it comes up with, I don't know if it's going to cause trouble. I don't know if this is going to show you my password, I won't do that. But when you book on Aeroplan, it will show you that there's a mixed cabin, and you can just choose for premium economy or economy, and then it will show up with that option. You can book it, and then you can call them up and get it switched. Again, it depends on the agent that you get, but cool. So there's probably lots of questions. This system kind of sucks at letting me answer those questions, but in general, I'm hoping that I can help a couple more people before this cuts out. Airplane lists premium reward pricing with mainly economy seats. Yeah, so they always price it at the most expensive. What other questions do we have here that I missed? Galapagos, that'd be nice. So, as an aside, like if someone's asking, I want to go to the Galapagos, if somebody yeah, no, there's a huge delay with the comments. I'm sorry about that. So if someone said they wanted to go to the Galapagos, then I would just start here. So let's say, so Heather wants to go to the Galapagos. Here's the Galapagos, there's SCY and GPS. So you can zoom in there a little bit to see. From memory, and one that I've done before, I know that the Galapagos, LAN flies there, and they are a member of Oneworld, which means that British Airways and American Airlines. So, the Avianca flies there too. So Avianca is Star Alliance, and so you could use Aeroplan or United Airlines to fly them. And they fly. It looks like this isn't fully accurate, but it looks like they fly almost every day of the week. So that's great. LAN. The benefit of flying with LAN, and I'll use this as a very quick comparison. So let's say we had Avianca, and we're going to go to Aeroplan's award chart. And it says if we're going to go from southern South America, which is, I think, technically where Ecuador, I think it's where Quito is in Ecuador. Let's scroll down and have a quick look. Southern South America is, oh no, cool. So Ecuador and Galapagos Islands is North and South America. That's good because it's less. So if we go and have a look at Northern South America, then it says to go from Northern South America to Northern South America, which is up here. Then we scroll down and we see it's 25,000 points round trip. Now, let's write that down. So I'll get rid of this. So 25k round trip on Aeroplan, Northern South America to the same. Now, if you were going to look on British Airways, British Airways has a really bad award chart. But what you have to do, because it's distance based, you have to calculate the distance between A and B. So, what was the airport again? GPS to UIO, and I'd go to this gcmap.com. GPS to UIO, and I'd say how far is that, and it's going to come up and it's going to tell me that it is 824 miles. So I can go to my I'll put up a link with this too. This is like one of the only places that the British Airways award chart is kind of written down. It's not on their website, which is ridiculous, but they prefer it that way. So this is going to show you a little bit of a difference in between the two systems, but this is kind of what it looks like here. So the distance in air miles, like in the actual miles in the air flown by the plane, determines how much it costs, as opposed to like region A to region B. So just quickly, like, when you know how Aeroplan said that all of these countries were North and South America, technically if you were flying Aeroplan, you could fly from here to here, or from Galapagos to the far side, and it would be the exact same amount of miles. That's with Aeroplan. But because British Airways is distance based, it's not quite as friendly. So I know you know that, Heather, but I'll just explain that for everybody else. Now, one really good thing about British Airways is that because it's distance based, sometimes it can be a lot less. So, you notice here that distance in air miles determines the price. What did Great Circle Mapper say? It said that it was 824 miles between Galapagos to Quito. Now this says that that is between that first range there, and so it would be 7,500 avios for that flight. Or if you were to go there and back, it would be 15,000. So if you have a look at this, it's going to be 15k round trip on LAN Airlines using British Airways Avios, and it's 834 miles in the air each way. Now, when you think about that's 15,000 versus 15k versus 25k, if you had a plan like earlier we were talking about Chase and how Chase can convert to other programs, well, we're talking about Amex this time in Canada, and Amex converts to Aeroplan and British Airways, and it's usually 1-to-1. So if you're going to talk about which is the best one to convert from, then if it's going to be 15,000 instead of 25,000, then maybe it's best if we go convert our 15,000 Amex into 15,000 BA points, and then you've saved 10,000. Now that's obviously not taking into account the fact that if I was doing this, I would say, all right, Avianca flies there from Quito. How do I get from Quito to somewhere else on Avianca that is closer to Canada? And so if I was doing this, I would probably filter by Avianca, and then I would say Quito, and these are all the places that they fly from Quito. I know I can get to Panama City, Bogota, and San Salvador. Now, if you click on Bogota, you'll see they fly to LA. That's awesome. But if we get rid of that Avianca flight filter, then from Bogota, I bet you there's a flight probably up a lot closer to Canada. I think Air Canada flies there. Yeah, Air Canada flies there. So now we were talking about air fuel surcharges earlier. Air Canada, I know for a fact when you're flying Aeroplan, charges a lot. It doesn't if you're flying United, but if you had Aeroplan, which I think Heather has, then she might have to go through Toronto, or she could try and go through LA, or she could try and go through Houston or any other city. But if you wanted to do it properly, you could say where she is from in Victoria, and you could say I want to get to Galapagos. No routes with 1 stop found, no routes with 2 stops found. That's a shame. Let's see if we can go from Vancouver. Looks like there is Vancouver to Houston, Houston to Quito, Quito to Quito to Galapagos on Avianca. United is Star Alliance, United is Star Alliance, Avianca Star Alliance. So, having looked at that option that we were looking at earlier, if you were already in North America, it probably wouldn't make sense to use that. If you're already in South America, you want to go to Galapagos, it's recommended you use British Airways Avios because they're good for short little trips. But if you're going to go from Canada to Northern South America, it's only 50,000 points to go round trip for the whole way. So it might be better because Aeroplan lets you have a stopover. So if I was doing this and I said I wanted to go from Vancouver to Houston, if I wanted to stop in Houston I could, if I wanted to stop in Quito I could, but technically you could fly that route on the way there and then you could fly another one on the way back with a stopover. Now I know that's kind of confusing, we're going all over the place, But if this was Heather, she could go from YVR to Houston or IH, and then to UIO, then to GPS. Then she could go GPS to UIO to Bogota, and then she could go Bogota back home. There's no direct flight, but we'll just do this for the sake of it. So now, with the one ticket that was only 50,000, she's gone from Vancouver to the Galapagos. She goes Galapagos to Bogota. She has a good time in Bogota, checks out Colombia. Then she goes Colombia back home. Now, there's more steps there. I've skipped a couple, but the general gist is Aeroplan stopovers are a little bit of a different monster. United stopovers are a different monster as well, but use these tools to figure out what your options are. This is good for visualizing what you're trying to do. Aeroplan's award chart, United's award chart, all the airlines' award charts are really handy as well. So, although that's kind of like a little bit of a very rushed view, there's a couple of tools there, and I'm going to put a couple more up on the website, which will hopefully explain some of the tools that I use to try and piece that together. Now, I understand that this is kind of like my brain on paper, which is a little bit of a gong show, but I'll just try and see if anybody's written anything else that I've missed. Oh, that's right. Looks like you missed it, Sharon. Fees with British Airways. Sharon has asked. Let's have a look at this. Sharon has asked, what about fees? British Airways, aren't they high? British Airways fees are high if you are flying British Airways. They're not always high if you're flying something else. I've flown British Airways. I've used British Airways to fly Alaska Airlines, which is like not a commonly known partner, and it only cost me $30 in fees. And so it really depends on which airline you're flying with the points. So if you fly, like we were looking at before, to go from Quito to Galapagos, you can go on LAN. LAN doesn't pass on fees. British Airways is just the point system. It's usually the airline that decides whether they're going to pass on the points. There's always exceptions to the rule. Aeroplan has their own exceptions. But yeah, that's kind of like a little bit of a fun fact about BA. Like, it sounds like a bad deal, but it's not always a bad deal. And knowing this just takes a little bit of time with reading. Yeah, you got it. Sharon got it all over it. Probably got it way before I kept on talking. So I'll answer another question from Marcy, I think, was asking about a trip to Hawaii. No, Sunny. Sorry. So Sunny was asking for a trip posted on the other link. So I'll just have a quick look at where that was. I think I saw where you had that. Oh no, I remember now. Down here. So, family of 4 start in Seattle, fly to Kona, leaving Christmas Day, gone for 2 weeks. Christmas Day is going to be tough, but we can have a look. Slightly flexible. She's got Amex. Alright, so what I would do is I'd break this down into a little bit simpler to process. So, we want to go Seattle to Kona on December 25th times 4 people. That's going to be kind of tough, but we could have a look. The points you have are Amex, MR, they're probably American because you're in Seattle. Delta 112, Alaska 75, American 65. Oh, you got all kinds of points here. Nicely done, Sonny. 50k, and thank you, rewards 62. Now you got a bunch of points. I think you definitely got a shoe in here. Now, if this was me, I know for a fact that Amex goes to British Airways. I know that British Airways is really good for going to Hawaii. Now the reason why is kind of similar to what we were talking about earlier with the distance calculator. So now you're in Seattle, and this is where it's going to be tough because a lot of people know this now, and even more people are going to know it now. Seattle to Kona, who's going to fly there? Oh, it's KOA, that's right, my bad. So there's a direct flight on Alaska and there's a direct flight on Delta. Now, if you were to use Alaska Air Miles, I think it's 40k. So if you were gonna fly, oh geez, they've changed all this since I've seen it. That's fun. If you were gonna go from continental US to Hawaii, then it says it's gonna be 20,000 or 30,000 one way, or 40,000 round trip. So minimum 40,000 points, 60,000 depending on what how busy it is and all that sort of stuff. And they might even they might even say Christmas is just too busy. But let's give it a try. So just assuming it's going to be 20,000 each way. Now, if we look at another option, let's write that down now. So Alaska is saying 20k each way. But British Airways is distance based, so it might be a better one to look at. So we're going to have another quick look at that British Airways chart, and I'll send you that. I'm going to put this on the blog post. So we're going to have a look at that chart again. And we got to figure out the distance. Not going in the right order. So Seattle to Kona is 2,688 miles. Let me have a look at this bad boy. No, this guy, which is the award chart for British Airlines. 2,000, just under 3,000. So it comes under here, which means it's 12,500 miles in economy. Now, let's compare that to what we had. That was 20,000 each way. But if we use British Airways, which you can get from Chase, we use 12.5k each way. And the same with Amex. You could use BA, 12.5k each way. Now what happens now? So I know that I want to use British Airways to fly Alaska Airlines, so I've got to make sure that Alaska Airlines flights are available. If I search on Alaska Airlines, it's going to show me the Alaska availability, but it's only going to show me the Alaska availability using Alaska points. Now this is where it gets funny. British Airways doesn't show you. If you go to British Airways, we won't go there because we're kind of running out of time. But if you go to British Airways and search for Seattle to Kona, it won't show you anything. But if you go to American Airlines, which doesn't make any sense, I know, but if you go to American Airlines and you search Seattle to Kona, one way on December 25th, it's going to be tough. I'm not going to lie, but cool. Let's just search for one for now, and then we'll go from there. It's always good to start with the simplest and then make it more complicated. So the reason why American Airlines shows availability is because American Airlines is a partner of Alaska Airlines, and British Airways is a partner of Alaska Airlines. So they basically are looking at the same bucket full of tickets that they are allowed to pull from. That's not always true, but in this instance I can tell you that it is. Whatever you see on American Airlines is the exact same availability that British Airways has. If they tell you that they don't, you need to talk to them and explain to them and keep bugging them until they figure it out. So this is telling me that there's nothing on the 25th directly to Kona. There's nothing on the 26th, nothing on the 27th, nothing on the 28th, 29th. There is something on the 30th. Now, no, it's probably not when you want to go. It is, yeah, it does get you there before New Year's, so that's kind of handy. And I know it says 22.5 there. Don't worry about that for now. But just know that there is a economy mile saver award availability to go from. Oh, hang on, we got to double check, don't we? Yeah, Alaska. So Seattle to Kona on a direct flight. This flight will be bookable with British Airways Avios, and it will only cost you 12,500 miles. It's not on the date you want. So we can go back to the drawing board here and have to look at flight connections again. So I'll make sure I'm not missing any. And we're going to have a look at where else they go. So, what other Alaska Airlines are there? So, we're going to have a zoom in there a little bit on Seattle. The other fun one to remember is Bellingham. Bellingham does fly to Hawaii, but seasonally. So if you couldn't get to Kona, I know it says that you couldn't get there, but maybe you can go to Maui. So OGG. So we're going to have a quick look at, we're going to find flights on American Airlines, but we're going to try and see what the availability is like from Seattle to Maui, because we might be able to get a cheap intra-Hawaii flight on another airline, or maybe something else. So it looks like Heather's already got that. There you go. Could also fly to a different Hawaiian island. Then intra-island hop with 3,000 elevate points. And Heather's got a little blog post on her blog about that if you want to read about that. So we're going to choose OGG instead of Kona, and we're going to see what flights come up on Alaska with that. You got to make sure you click through and make sure it's an Alaska flight. If it's an American flight, it's still possible, but because British Airways does distance-based, then it's gonna charge you for wherever the connection is, because there's no direct flight. As we saw, there's no direct flight on American Airlines from Seattle to Hawaii. Let's see what come up with. 29th. Ooh, we're creeping a day forward. So you could leave a day earlier. Let's just double check we're talking about the same thing here. So Seattle to Maui. It's a little slow for us here. That's fun. Alaska Airlines direct flight from Seattle to Maui is available. 5:50 p.m. getting it at 9:50 on the 29th. So that's good. It brings you a day forward. You could eventually just keep searching for other airlines that way. So that's one suggestion that I would say. And yes, you do need to call British Airways to book that. And so if you are going to go, let's say you look, what I would do is I'd write down this flight number, I'd write down the date, I'd write down the times and the airports. And what I do is I often get a screenshot. So I go, Mac has a really handy screenshot tool. You go like this, and then I'd get like I get a Word document going, and I just start pasting all the information in there. And so you can screenshot that, paste it, and it's taking its sweet time because I'm doing lots of stuff on the computer. And oh, this is painful. I'm sorry. There you go. So it's here. So then I would collect all this information in a Word document. I'd call British Airways and I'd say, hi, I know that there's a flight available from here to here. If you didn't have this, you could call British Airways and you could just say, hey, can you look for flights from Seattle to each Hawaiian airport for me? And you'd have to do one by one, and you'd have to sit there while they're waiting, and they'd be like, oh, I don't know if there is anything. And then you'd be like, did you check the day before? And they're like, oh yeah, I did. So you'll often find that it's really depends on the agent, so you might as well try and take it into your own hands to get a little bit more savvy on how to find these individual flights on the days that you want them. Cool. So hopefully that helps, gives you a bit more of an idea of how to search for availability using all the different tools. There's one more really cool tool that you should all get from Award Flights. It's called Award Finder, and it's amazing. And it lets you search for multiple days at a time. Aeroplan searches, especially, like if you're an Air Canada a frequent flyer, then you probably want to go get this tool. You just got to enter your own details. So you sign in with your own Air Canada number, and then you can search for. You have to search for the airport code. So you got to get pretty good at knowing that. So if, let's say I was not, this is going to show up anything, but let's say I was trying to search for the exact same thing, then I can search for that. And Air Canada's kind of daily search kind of sucks. And so I could say I want to search for 2 extra days for 3 passengers or whatever, and it runs a script in the background. It basically searches as though it's you on the website, but using magic, and then it'll come back and spit out the answers for whatever you need to do. Now, I recommend getting this. You can enter your British Airways information, which is good. British Airways flights don't always, like, you can't search Alaska Airlines flights on British Airways, even though you can fly Alaska Airlines with British Airways points. I know it's frustrating. But yeah, Heather's just mentioned there's a fun little game called Hookah, so hang up and call again. If you can't find what you're looking for, then hang up and call again. So we're running out of time here. I've been blabbing on forever and ever. So Sunny's just asked, do I transfer my points over to Chase and then BA and then call? What I would say is you want to call and make sure that it's all good. But if you searched on Alaska and you saw them, you'd want to make sure that that's available for 4 people. If it was available for 4 people, then you could call up. You could convert your points. Usually with Chase, it's immediate. With Amex, it's immediate, especially to British Airways. And then you could call them up and say, hey, I know that there's 4 seats available. I want to book here to here. I want to lock it in right now. And usually if you see one on a crazy date like that, you want to jump on it. This is just the result of that flight. So you see that the day I picked, when I'm searching, I know that on Air Canada, which is what I searched, with Air Canada Aeroplan, United flights are really cheap. They don't charge a fuel surcharge. And Y is economy in this column here. J is business first, and then W is premium. But I'm looking for check marks in all the Ys. That's what I usually just fly economy because I'm cheap. And I know that all the connections, I know the flight numbers, and I can use this information to then call up Aeroplan and piece my trip together. So this is a really cool tool that I recommend anyone who wants to dig a little deeper to get, because it's really handy. It's called Award Finder from award.flights, and I've put the link in the blog post here on the side. So there's a bunch of different tools here. I'm going to add a couple more that I didn't add beforehand. These, I've obviously done this wrong, must have been tired, but test originally to check. Then you want to check the miles balance and go through what you've got, figure out all the options. So we did that a little bit here. We said, okay, we've got this, and I know this goes to here and here, and Delta, and it gets overwhelming. Like what I would do is I ignore all these for a second, and look here and see if it's available. If it's not, then I look at Delta, and I go to Delta's website, and I piece together Delta from A to B. I'd go to the route flight connections, and I'd say, all right, if I want to go from Seattle to Kona, what's all the different ways I can fly there? I know I've looked at Alaska Airlines flies there. That's not fun. It's reset me, that's all. Seattle to Kona, Delta flies there directly too. So I could search for that on Delta and see what comes up. It's Christmas, so it's going to be quite busy, but it's definitely worth having a look. And you can see where else they fly. Do they fly to Maui? Yes, they do, and so does Hawaiian Airlines. So which of these Chase points can I use to fly on Hawaiian Airlines? And then I go through and I'm like, okay, I can use Alaska miles to fly there. So maybe it's worth using my Alaska miles because maybe all the Alaska flights and all the Delta flights are taken, and maybe the Hawaiian flights are a little bit more, but it's worth it. So like I said, test, search, check the most simple availability. So just check using the machine that you're given and see what happens. See if you get something good. If you got it, go ahead. It's not worth your time to dig a million miles deep if you found something that's good enough. Then check what you can convert to. Know the possible partners. I'm going to try and put a couple more links here. This Million Mile Secrets one is really quite good. It lists all the partners. Travel is Free is good. It's a little bit older, but it's still good. You can always go on the Alliance websites. Then search segment by segment. So search one by one for each little piece of the puzzle. Write them all down. If you need to call them, then call them. And sometimes they charge you $30, but hey, you've just got the best flight available that the computer couldn't even tell you, and sometimes that's worth $30. Cool. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea. Please feel free. I might cut it there because I think I've been talking forever. But please continue the conversation in the comments. I'm just going to switch this back so I can say hi and see you later. Hi. Cool. So thanks very much for watching. My name's Matt. This is Travel University. Please continue the conversation in the comments. I don't know where it is. Somewhere here. And let me know if there's. I know this was a little sporadic. It was kind of the first one. I just, on a whim, just decided it was a good time to do it. And I hope that you got something out of it. If you didn't, please let me know. If there's more stuff you'd prefer me to cover, please let me know. The only way I know is by some feedback. So keep me posted on that. And then if you would like anything particular covered in the future, just to give you an idea of what I want to try and achieve with this is I want to try and eventually get people on that can teach really valuable stuff to people who have been always curious or are scared to, don't know if they can trust the sources of information that are on the internet. There's lots of fantastic blogs out there, but there's lots of companies that are trying to make money off people who don't quite understand how it all works, and they try to confuse you on purpose. So I want to try and clear some of that mud, clear some of that dust away, and make things a little easier. So any suggestions or requests for information, please let me know. I know a lot of people ask a lot about insurance. Which credit card is the best? How do I get miles quickly? How do I manufacture spend? How do I do all these kinds of things? I want to try and do lots of really broad, early on, piece by piece stuff. I jumped right in here just to try and wing it and see how I could be the most useful. But I'd like to go back to the start and kind of how to earn miles and how the credit card thing works and why it's worth it and how credit score works and how much it actually doesn't affect you anywhere near what people think. But there's lots of stuff to learn, and there's many different ways to do it. So my voice is sick of hearing me. I'm sure you are too. But it was really cool to have, there's probably 8 or 10 people on here that were listening, and hopefully you learned something. Please let me know. Send me a message to the Travel University. Send me an email, or go to the website, and please feel free to comment and let your friends know and see what happens. But yeah, hopefully we can build a bit of a community that's sharing information and get some valuable guest speakers on. I'm hoping to get some guest speakers from some of the other travel blogs on, and they can teach us about what we need to know. Anyway, that's me. It's Matt, Travel University. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Otherwise, it's really nice to have you guys. Welcome, and I'll catch you guys next time. See you later.